Hello everyone, my name is DimitriusMac, and welcome to the Week 12 recap, folks, of my Fantasy Wrath League. Folks, it has come down to each and every single week with me going on of this is getting closer and closer to the playoffs. This is getting more and more stressful. We have reached almost the peak of stressful time in Fantasy League. It is do or die time for a lot of you. Playoffs are coming up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks for me. But folks, as a matter of fact, the playoffs might as well already be here. You know the game that you have to play, some teams have to play to get into the NCAA tournament or to get into the MLB playoffs. That's pretty much the point where we are at. We have a total of 4.5 teams, and I'll get to the in-half part a little bit later on in the show. But we have 4.5 teams, folks, that are facing elimination from the playoffs today at this point in time, Friday, December the 1st. That is the time that I'm recording this. Everything is going down. There's a lot to get you guys up to. This is the pinnacle of stress. I cannot emphasize enough how stressful this league is going to be, and for the players in it who are still competing, who are still trying to make the playoffs here. It's going to come down to this week. Hearts are going to be broken. It's all for one spot. The top 3 spots are all but taken up. And then we have about 4 or 5 teams fighting for one spot in that 4th seed, folks. Only one team's going to get it. This is the type of league that I want to play in. This is the type of stress that I want this time of year during football season. It is all hectic. So without further ado, folks, we are going to jump into the recap. Starting things off here, we see a huge victory for the Murder Boners here, who now jumps up to 5-7, which puts him at the 7th seed. Me dropping down to 6-6 still yields me at a 4 seed, folks, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Now, folks, if we go down to the simple box score here, we are able to tell what went wrong. So what went wrong on my end? Well, you see, Mark Ingram put up a stinker, the absolute lowest scoring putting out for him of the season in that loss to Los Angeles. It was all the Alvin Kamara show, who is now probably, in all honesty, the best running back in all of fantasy football. At this point in time, he wasn't the entire season, but at this point in time, Alvin Kamara, he just does everything. He gets the receiving yards, he gets the running yards. He is basically what I call an improved version of Chris Thompson. He's what I hope Chris Thompson would turn into before Chris Thompson, unfortunately, blew his leg out. And because of that, I had limited options. We see Stephon Diggs got the yardage, but no touchdown. Latavius Murray did his thing, and nobody else really performed besides my kicker and my defense. Alex Smith is all but gone. That offense is in shambles. And we see on the other side, of course, Carson was having a beautiful matchup with the Chicago Bears. Are you kidding me? At home versus the Chicago Bears. I mean, my goodness, that is just a matchup you just dream up of in heaven. And Alex Collins performing his thing at 11 points. You see Samaje Perine getting 100 yards. Or it's for the first time. Well, I think it's the first time. Or maybe this was the second time he's gotten in his career. But he had a really good game versus the New York Giants here. And then we see, just Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson, have yourself a career day. Why don't you? 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. That'll get you some major points there. And it did. It bolstered him 26 points. But let's take a look at something that I haven't had too much of bad luck on in the past that I had this week. We see here, and we see wow. Phillip Rivers, 28 points versus Dallas. You see Marvin Jones, 22 points versus Minnesota. This is a team that in the past has locked him up ever since he's been in Detroit. And now all of a sudden he decided to put up a big point like this, so I left him on the bench. And you leave, and then you also look at Jamison Crowder, who got me 20 points. And not bad from the bench. I mean, Jack Doyle got me 9 points. Evan Ingram got me only 1 point here. Eckler and Carlos Hyde would have gotten me more. So every single possible bad decision that could be made at literally every position I made. This is one of the worst decisions I have made as a fantasy player in my entire... No, this is the worst. I've not had a worse situation happen to me ever. This is it. It doesn't get worse than this, folks. It doesn't get, even if there's different variations because of the different players and different leagues, I guarantee you it does not get worse than this. This is as bad as you can possibly perform. When everybody you leave on the bench puts up a high number of points, and not only that, but at every position you would have got more points if you had put in their opposite end that you had left on the bench. So it was a tough loss for me. This would have really almost guaranteed me that 7th spot, although not indefinitely, it would have made things easier for me, but it would almost guarantee me, like, it would have put me in a much easier position to get that 4th seed. But now I all but have to win out, and it is just a tougher situation that I put myself in. And you know what? I did it to myself. I got to own up to it. I got to live up to it. And we just move on, because that's what we do here. Coming in at our second matchup here, folks, we have Dybala's putting the beat down on Supremacy here, all but ending his streak. He's going to the conference or the consolation bowls that we're going to have. But Devon is sitting at 6-6 in 6th place. Talk about 666, all right? So that's not exactly a good number to be at right now. So I'm hoping that because he has the demonic Devons lettering there, that he just has a horrible week. Because I mean, you can't win fantasy when your letters are sitting at 6, 6, and 6, right? I mean, come on. But anyways, he's my opponent for this week, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's take a look what happened this week. So what did happen this week? Russell Wilson putting up an absolute domination right here, of course, versus the San Francisco, 49ers. And, it didn't start off that way, but he virtually improved, or progressively improved, I should say, because it's 49ers. Let's be real here. So let's take a little look at the other side, folks. When you have Tom Brady, nobody else, nothing else going for you, it looks good because you have Tom Brady, but when you have nobody else, like that's a true superstar on your roster, it's going to be hard. Or someone who's having a breakout year or something, it's going to be hard. As you can see, 61 points here. Did leave some points on the bench, though. Jermaine Kearse got him some good points. And Kyle Rudolph, boy, that sure would have helped. And he could have won if he had put those players in. But he didn't. I mean, Rudolph performing really well. Those 2 touchdowns, that's unlike him this season, unfortunately. I drafted him to do that, but he just didn't perform during the time that I had him. And we could just look that this was a winnable game for him. But it was just that case that happens every week and leaving somebody on the bench that you shouldn't have. So at the end of the day, Devon moves on to 6-6, sitting at 6th base, still in the hunt for that playoff spot. Now this game right here, I'm not going to spend too much time on because it pisses me off. You see 97 points here, and this is the infamous teams that were involved in the Antonio Brown, Will Fuller BS giveaway. And so that's what I'm calling it. I refuse to call it a trade, folks. You can deal with it whether you may. But anyways, folks, if you're familiar with that situation, I highly recommend it and go back and watch last week's episode, even if you just skipped it for whatever reason. Go back and watch it. I explain all that here. But if you're wondering how Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown are now on the same team, it is all explained in the previous episode. But he came from this team here. And had Antonio Brown remained on this team here, he would have won, and he would have officially knocked out this disgusting team out of any type of contention here. But because of it, they are still technically in contention, sitting at 8th place. So it's a long shot. But 5-7 is 8th, and 6-6 is 4th place, which is me. So lots got to go right from him. But there's not a lot to look. I mean, Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger. That's all you need to know for Isaiah's team. Derek Carr, Tevin Coleman, and Hunter Henry. And his defense and his kicker. They performed very, very well. And he left a receiver in too, which all but means that this was all colluded somehow. Because I don't know how you replace somebody. You just trade them, but then you don't replace it. It's just too infuriating for me to really get into, folks. So I'm not going to even waste my time with it. This is obviously the kid guy next sitting at 2-10. He's done. He's not paying attention unless he wants to. All right. And Isaiah is clearly trying to come back, somehow by the cheapest and dirtiest scheme way if possible. So, out of all the teams, I'm pushing for it. Who I hope he falls into oblivion. Hope he just, he just melts in the pits of fantasy hell, and that could sound like some hating stuff. It sounds like I'm hating, and I am. Because this is stupid. This is stupid that it happened, and it is just a stupid attempt for pretty much a lost cause. So we'll move on for this. There's nothing really here. But Isaiah does technically have a chance to make the playoffs. I'll get into all that a little bit later on. We still have 2 more matches to cover, folks. Now, this would have been a big win for Never Bowing Down because he's sitting at 5th. He was sitting at 5th last week. Had he won, he would have moved ahead of me. He would have been a game ahead of me. Things would have been looking up for Never Bowing Down. But the ESO legend said, no, not today. I am trying to go for that number 1 spot, number 1 seed, because the number 1 seed plays the number 4 seed. And I'll say this, folks. Excuse me. It may be better to be the 2 seed and the 3 seed than the 1 seed. Here's why. Because if you're coming in, that 4th seed is going to be hungry. Whoever gets that at the end of the day has made all the right decisions. Their players are performing well. They are going to be hungry. So honestly, with 5 teams essentially, 4.5 I should say, fighting for that spot, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top of that when they get the spot officially. It's going to be interesting because they're going to be hungry for that spot. But let's take a look at what happened. Andy Dalton, Todd Gurley, and Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski had a delicious matchup versus the Miami Dolphins, which is a delicious matchup to any offense. Let's just be real. And defense, too, because, hey, Jay Cutler and Matt Moore can't get that offense downfield for nothing, it seems. But on the other end, we see struggles like Dak Prescott, who lightweight bounced back this past Thursday versus the Washington Redskins. So if you started him, and especially if you started Jason Witten, which a lot of you probably didn't. But honestly here, Dak has been in a bit of a skid the past 3 out of his 4 games, excluding the one yesterday as of time of this recording on Thursday. And, it was hard. But you see, Alvin Kamara was the only one that made this thing close. Nothing else, no performers from him on the bench. He left Brandon Cooks on the bench. Why? Beats me. I don't know why you'd leave Brandon Cooks on the bench at this point. He's proven to be a top fantasy option. But it is what it is here. And, you move on. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. But you do hope to see better performances from Thielen and Thomas in the future. Those could be key people for him going down the stretch here. And then in a surprise, but not really so surprise beatdown, we have the fundraisers sitting at the 3rd seed. And he played our number 1 seed here, right here, the Suge Knight. This was an absolute beatdown. Not really much to go. There's not really too much playoff attention. You see Julio Jones just going the hell off. Julio Jones, have yourself a day. 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. He even threw in 15 rushing yards. He said, why not? I'm doing everything else. Why don't I just give me the ball? Give me the ball on the ground, coach, and let me see what I get. He got you 15 rushing yards. So, it's not that big of a deal, but it is when you see what it was combined with. So, almost 40 points from Julio Jones. Mind-boggling. Probably not going to win unless everybody else on the team puts up a stinker. Which they did not. He had good performances with Delaney Walker and Alshon Jeffrey and Marshawn Lynch. This was a very well-performing team here. And you look on the other side, and it was just Keenan Allen had himself a day versus Dallas, which is what I was hoping Jamison Crowder would do for me yesterday. All you Washington Redskin fans who started Jamison Crowder in your fantasy league, I feel for you. Rough day for that guy. Rough day. But you look over here, and it's not that it was a bad point. It was kind of low. Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt are kind of lost right now with the whole offense and thing that's going on with with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's kind of weird. But hope to see them bounce back if you're an owner of any of these 2 people, because they have been huge in the fantasy up until a few weeks ago. Okay, folks, the time has come. Now, I've done a lot of thinking about this, but it's time to break this down to you as best as I possibly can. So let's take a look. Boom, 6-6. Boom, 6-6. The 4th seed and the 6th seed play each other. Let's take a look at another matchup here for week 13. 6-6, 5-7. Boom. What does that mean? It means a lot. So let's go ahead and take a look at the fundraisers and Isaiah's team. 5-7, 8-4. All have incredible implications this week. All right. So let's move on to week 14 and let's break down the scenario so you guys can understand. So there's a possibility. There is no way that there is not going to be a 7-6 team. From what I just showed you guys, there's no possible way that there's going to be there's not going to be a 7-6 team this following week for week 14. Folks, there is either going to be me at 7-6. There's either going to be Never Bowing Down at 7-6. Or there's just going to be Never Bowing Down at 7-6. Or there's going to just be Never Bowing Down and DeBallas at 7-6. So one of those scenarios, one of those 3 scenarios is going to happen. So let's just take one example, because there's many areas that this can go. Let's just take one for example. Let's say I win, these other 2 lose, and they both now sit at 7 or 6 and 7. They're both 6 and 7. I am now at 7 and 6. Let's take this. Remember these 2 who they played last week. Let's go back to week 13. We go back to week 13, and who do these 2 play? We see here, right here. He plays the fundraiser. If Isaiah beats the fundraisers and the murder boners beats Never Bowing Down, we can go back. They'll both be at 6 and 7, right? Right. They'll both be at 6 and 7. So if they win this and I lose, 7 and 6 turns to 7 and 7 for me. It says right here 5 and 7 because week 13 has not been played, but assuming one of these 2 wins the next 2 weeks, I'll be at 7 and 7. I'm 7 and 7. These 2 teams have both beat me throughout the year. I have not beat them. Therefore, they usurped me out of whatever spot that I thought I had. But that is just one scenario. So if Never Bowing Down is at 6 and 7 and he wins in week 14, he is 7 and 7. Which makes things interesting because I'm not sure who he beat of these 2. I'm pretty sure he beat Isaiah. I'm not sure if he beat the Murder Boners. But Dabalas, who is also 6 and 7, if he wins this week, he'll be 7 and 7. There's possibility to have 4 7 and 7 teams. And the mind-boggling thing is, and that's just one scenario that I'm breaking down. So it's possible we have 4 7 and 7 teams at the end. Who gets the spot? I don't know. I'm going to be real with you guys. I didn't do enough backtracking in the league to see who does it. I'm by myself here. I don't have a team to get me all these stats and everything. It's just a lot. And this is just one example to show you guys how much stress this is all going to be. Because this is just one scenario that I showed of many different paths that I could have took. But one scenario here leads to 4 teams at 7 and 7. And who knows who gets in here. The possibility of me, the Murder Boners, or Isaiah's team, Never Bowing Down, and Dabalas could all be 7 and 7 by the time week 14 is over. So you never know, folks. You never know the way things are going to play out. You never know the way things are going to shape up for your fantasy league. All you can do is try and make the best decision possible. And at this point, none of this really matters. The only thing that really matters, folks, is to just win. You got to just win. Al Davis said it, but just win, baby, win. You just got to win. Forgetting all the number crunching. If you win, you're probably going to be in a good place. That's all anybody's worried about. That's all anything that's going on. So that's it, folks. That's what I want to share with you, folks. Brain is hurting from doing all this crunching, even though it's not that much. All right, don't laugh at me. But, folks, there's a lot going on. So, thank you once again for taking the time out of your day to watch one of my videos. This league is getting, like I said, to its pinnacle point of hectic. And hope you guys are enjoying it. Hope you guys are doing well in your own fantasy of your own if you're in one. So make sure to hit that like button if you like this video. If you're new here and you like what you see here, all this chaos, go ahead and click that subscribe button as well. And I will see you all in the next video. Until then, I'm DimitriusMac, and I'm out. Peace.